Hi, this video is to show you how I made this cupcake hat. I had this hat on my 4-year-old daughter's head, and if you are a fan on my Facebook page, you've seen the picture. If not, since I'm posting this on YouTube, I will have a picture on the end of it actually on my daughter's head, just so you can kind of get an idea of size. But like I said, she's 4 years old, and I had this on her head. And I used 1 strand of yarn for the bottom and 2 for the top, and this was on this size loom, which is the red Nifty Knitter loom. So if you're going to make it for a baby, you might need to shorten this version up, or to attempt to try it on the mini preemie baby hat one, the blue one that's the next size down. But I would recommend probably only using 1 strand of yarn throughout the whole project on that, just because it usually creates a really tight stitch if you use 2 strands on that one, at least in my opinion. So this cupcake is the updated version of this one. Now, I don't mind this one, but I'm not very happy with it. I will probably not be doing a tutorial on this hat. Instead, I'll show you how I did this one. So, and the other thing, another upcoming video you'll see is on how to make a bag like that's behind me. I did a video showing you that project. I will do a video later showing you how to make the project. But again, this is how to make this. So step 1, now first let me just zoom in so you can see. We've got different stitches going on. We've got, oops, let me do it this way. That was just a little extra string because I had to tie off. This is a different type of stitch. This is a tighter stitch to kind of make it look more like the cupcake pattern. Let me see. Hang on one second. Okay, need a little more light. Anyhow, so this is a tighter stitch, as you can see. And then we switch off and making these little nubbings, or whatever you want to call them, which took me forever. I had the idea of this part, I had the idea of this part, I know how to make the pom-pom. Could I figure out this part for the life of me? No. I spent a couple days trying to figure it out for a friend online. So I'm going to show you how to make this. It's pretty simple, so I'm not going to actually do the whole tutorial from start to bottom. I'll show you it kind of in pieces, like this is what you would do for the first part up until a certain part. So this is not going to be in any way the whole thing of how to make it from start to finish. It's going to show you the different components and then you work them all together. So we're going to start with the first part, which is casting on and doing the bottom part. Now, for the sake of this tutorial, I only have 1 color in here. I have white because I figured that will show up a little better. But use any color to put on the loom at the first time. And again, I used 1 strand, but because this yarn I have in here is a little thinner, I'm going to actually be using 2 strands. But again, a lot of it's too is what you're comfortable with working with. So, I have 2 balls of yarn in here, and they're both white, because white I feel will show up better. But as you can tell, I used green in that project. I was also thinking you could color an ice cream hat and do like a brown on the bottom and whatever on the top. So it could be cupcake hat or ice cream hat. So you're going to make your slip knot. Let me show you how. Wrap your finger. So you got your little slip knot. Now the thing I forgot to do, I'm getting all tangled. Hang on a second. The thing I forgot to do when I did this the first time, because I usually drop it in and I go to the start, what I call the start peg, right next to the knob, and you tighten it off. What I forgot to do, what I like to do, is hide this string in the project so you don't have to worry about hiding it later. So you're going to take that with your 2 strands and you're going to wrap around, and you're going to wrap each peg so that they're wrapped, I have to think of the stitch, 3 times. So go ahead and wrap it 3 times around. So we're working on the first wrap right now. It's just a simple E-wrap stitch. Okay, so work your way around, making sure that the yarn isn't too tight. The last thing you want to do is have your yarn too tight on here, because it's going to make it harder to knit over or purl or whatever stitch that is you're going to do. So as you can see, I'm just sitting here trying to do this fast. So we got the 1 strand on there, and we're getting ready to go around the second time. And what this is creating will be a tighter stitch, so that it'll actually create that kind of slightly like ribbed effect on there, which works really well for it to be a muffin hat, or cupcake hat. Okay, this thing is a muffin, this thing is a cupcake, this thing is an ice cream cone, whatever you want to call it. Anywho, so we'll keep wrapping around our second row. And what you might have to do is just push the strands down if they're in your way as you're zooming around here. Okay. And feel free to pause the video and come back as you're wrapping around. I'll still be here. Okay. So I'm getting ready to go around the 3rd time. Now again, I would recommend 1 strand. I could probably have gotten away with 1 strand on this, but I've already started to do, so I'm going to leave 2 on there. But again, it's kind of your call. The best thing I would say with any project is to test it out on like a smaller loom or something first to get the feel of, do you want to work with 1 strand or 2? Do you like the effect with 1 strand or 2? So a lot of these, products, you basically kind of want to test them out first and don't just go gung-ho into making it. Believe me, it took several trial and errors to get the cupcake looking the way I wanted the cupcake to look. So it's trial and error a little bit. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm starting the 3rd row. As you notice, I'm not going to keep going around. Because I want to kind of help it be looser, I'm going to actually do the knitting over 1 at a peg at a time. I just find that easier sometimes. So you grab your nifty little hook that comes with your kit, and you're just going to make this a tighter stitch, you're going to take the bottom stitch over the top 2 stitches. The bottom over the top 2. So go around and get the bottom stitch, which might be tight in some places, so that's why I kind of do it one individually, because then you can kind of control the slack. Okay, so what you're going to do, and what's good about this stitch is once you go around once, the next time you're just wrapping it once to get the bottom over the top. And again, like I said, try to keep your stitches as loose as you can, because that will make the project a little easier to work with. Now, the other things you'll need scissors at some point if you're going to change colors, and you're also going to need a crochet hook, whatever works best for you. I've tried using bigger ones sometimes, but I seem to work better with the smaller one, and this is a size G. Sorry, I had to look at it. That's kind of what I use, but again, it's what you're comfortable with. This is just for the idea. Okay, and we're still looking around here. I don't know, I may have to take this off and do 1 strand. Okay. I'm struggling a little bit, so I'm still trying to keep loosening my stitches as much as I can, so that, because when you do this part that creates the little nubbins, or whatever you want to call them, you're going to want it to be a kind of a loose stitch on there because of what I'm going to show you how you do it. It's actually not as hard as I thought it was going to be. I guess sometimes I make things harder than they are, so it took me, a little trial and error, and then finally I had a light bulb moment and said, okay, we'll try this. And that's what I'll show you. And I also want to say that any patterns or whatever that I show you on here, I'm not worried about copyright. Go ahead, make the project the way I'm making it if you want. Sell it, I don't care. I sell my own stuff locally anyway, so I'm not too concerned because I know people that are watching this live in all different states, so I will not hunt you down if you do my pattern, if I ever have a pattern and you do it. Especially if I ever do decide to try to write a pattern. I am a writer as well. If I ever try to write a pattern and I have that on my website or a link to it anywhere, again, there will be no issues for me for copyright. If I change my mind, I will definitely let you know and give you a heads up on what patterns may not be used for selling. But I don't know, I guess I just think it's, we're all over the country, and to have like sole ownership of a pattern be somebody, it's kind of weird, because how do you ever know? I mean, if I'm sitting here and I'm playing around with an idea of how to do a cupcake, then how can somebody else say, well, it's their idea when I didn't even look at a pattern, kind of thing. So okay, this takes a while. Okay, I'm almost back to the beginning, and yes, I talk a lot. Okay, so now that's what you're going to do. You're going to keep going around until, because what you're going to want to do when you get ready to do the little nubbin things, whatever, you're going to want to make sure there's 2 stitches, 2 stitches on your pegs, because of what you're going to do. That's what I kept forgetting to do when I was trial and erroring this. I would forget to leave a stitch on there and do this one technique that I'll show you, and it kept coming out wrong, and I was getting very mad. My daughter was laughing at me. She's like, Mommy, why are you mad? I'm like, the stinking thing won't work out right. And she laughed at me. So, I'm back to the beginning. Okay, and that's all you're going to do. So, all I've been doing is taking the bottom stitch over the top 2. So now if you look, let me separate it. There's actually 2 rows on there. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to keep doing that, the 1/2 stitch, until you get it, I believe this is probably 4 or 5 inches down. Again, it depends on how long you want it down for the kid's head you're planning on putting it on. So you're going to go down, so I'll put it right here. So this is to give you an idea. You're going to put it down to however far you want the muffin casing to be, or the cupcake holder, whatever you want to call it to be. Now what we're going to do is start working on, I'm going to show you how to do these little nubbing things. Now let me get another close-up again. Now I did make, I call it an accidentally on purpose kind of mistake. I had purled when I got ready to switch colors, so that's why you see white underneath and then green. but I actually really like the effect of it, kind of creating that line around to kind of show the brim off. So if you don't want that, then I believe if you knit over, like you attach your contrasting color, you know, your color that you're going to switch over to, knit it instead of purl it, and it probably will disappear that line, because if you look on the inside you don't see it. But this isn't a good hat for reversing. That's why it was taking me a while, because I want this stitch to be on the outside, and everything I was trying to do with these was making these be on the inside, which would give me this pattern for the bottom of it, and I didn't want that. So that's what took me so while too. So I'm going to show you how to do these little nubbing things. Now this is another area that you can kind of go by what you feel, and that's why when I say practice first, I mean it. Because just because I do something a certain way, you may decide you want these to stick out more. So you're going to do more of what is coming up than I did. So again, practice it on a small loom, get it down to where you're comfortable doing it. This does take a while to do this. Stay with me, just because it is time consuming. So I will end up pausing after I show you the first couple, and then I'll show you how it looks all done. But yeah, so this is the part we're going to work on, and then I'll tell you how I did the top. Okay, so we have our loom, and you've got it down to the length that you want the bottom to be. Now you want to make the little nubbin things. You switch the color from what you want the bottom to be to what you want the top to be. So you've switched your color, and now you're like, okay, how do I do those things? This is what I found out. Now this is going to be a little tricky to show, so let me get a little more situated here. Alright, this is where your crochet hook and this hook will come in handy. You may need this to take a stitch off. What you're going to do, if you've watched my casting off video, when I used, excuse me, I've used like this loom, and I would take a stitch off. I would do so many loops before I grabbed the stitch that was on the next peg. Do you remember? If you remember that, or go check it out, that's what we're going to kind of do here, but there's a little trick to it. What you're going to do, I got something in my eye, excuse me, I need to get a drink. Okay, what you're going to do, because you've got 2 stitches on here, again, make sure you have 2 rows of yarn. Now the only thing I'm concerned about is that these may be a little tight to work with. Okay, yeah, they might be a little tight. I might have made these stitches a little tight, so let me just check it out here. Okay, these stitches are a little tight, so I'm going to stop for a minute. I'm going to redo this up with 1 strand for right now to loosen these up. Otherwise, I'm going to take forever to show you it. So I'm going to stop right now, so stop your video and keep working on getting it down to where you want, and join me back for how to do the little. So I went back through, and I only used 1 strand for the first effect like I did on this one. So I would recommend that. Keep it 1 strand when you're doing the bottom color. Now you're going to switch over to the white, so you're going to make sure there's 2 strands. You're going to tie on the same color that you want. You're going to tie it on to the, like what I did, I can't talk tonight, is I tied an extra white piece of string onto the white I already had on there, so I would have the 2 strands. And what you're going to first do is, what I did on here is, I believe what I did here is I did a purl stitch to get this little white effect. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Get this little white effect here. I purled it, which is a pretty, excuse me, easy to do. But I actually think it would look better if you didn't do it. So you go around, you do your purling, so you have your contrasting color peeking through. Let's see, so let's purl that, and if you remember how to purl, you're just grabbing the string through the bottom and attempting to put a loop on there. So go around and do a purl row when you have your contrasting color. It does take a little while, is one thing I noticed. And again, if you forgot how to purl, you're just taking this, going through the 2 strands that are on there, reaching down to grab the ones that are down there, and putting that loop onto the peg. Now, like I said, you're going to want to make sure that there's 2 stitches on your peg for the technique we're going to do for the little things that stick out. So I'm just trying to get going here so that we can get to that part. And what we're going to do there is we're going to do the same thing we kind of did before. After we do this purl row, we're going to do that 3 over 1 or 1 over 2 stitches, and that will give us the 2 stitches on there that we need. So I'm almost to the end here. Like I said, I'm just doing the purl technique, so that's all you're going to do for this row as you're changing the colors. Okay. And I think this technique that I'm showing you on the round loom would actually probably work really well on a straight loom too, and it might be kind of cool to add to like a baby blanket or something, have these little bumps sticking out, as long as they're kind of with, especially if they're with a softer material. I mean, little babies do really well with having like textures and stuff like that, so I'm actually thinking about trying these on doing like a baby blanket, or maybe even trying to do a hat like this, a lay-up hat, and see how cool that might look. So that's what I mean. That's what I like, is you learn something new and then you're like, okay, how many other ways can I use this? So that's what's good too, is don't feel like you use one technique for one thing. If you learn a technique, try it out on other things. And that's why I'm going to try it out on a baby blanket, or maybe even on a purse, whatever way. I might try it on something else just for fun. Okay, so I've already done my purl row. Okay. Now, that's only one, excuse me. Get another drink, sorry. Okay, that's only 1 stitch that's on there, because I'm using 2 strands. That's only 1 stitch. So I'm not ready to do the technique yet. So you need to go around again so that you end up having, because you need those 2 stitches on there. That's the key to this technique working. Now, so you're going to wrap it again, but you're still not done. You need to wrap it to do the 1 over 2 stitch. Excuse me. Because again, that will give you the 2 stitches on there that you need for what we're going to do. Like I said, that's when I get to that step with that, that's time consuming a little bit. So that'll definitely be something that I'm not going to show every peg on camera. I'll have you'll come back and I'll show you what I did after that. Okay, so again, at this point, we still only have 2 strands. We need to go around 1 more time, but this time you can do like I sometimes do and kind of work your way around, bring the strand, then bring the 1 over the 2, then wrap the next peg, bring the 1 over 2, to kind of help create not so much tension in your string. So go ahead and go around 1 more time and bring in the bottom 2 strands, which is 1 stitch, over the top 2. This is going to give you the 2 strands that are left on there, and you'll see why you need them in about a couple seconds. Okay. The balls of yarn are attacking me, so I had to move them to the other side here. Okay. Like I said, keep your tension loose, because you don't want these stitches on here to be tight. They're going to be a pain to do for this technique if they are. Which probably I'll have a couple that way, because I always end up having a couple stitches tight. And if it wasn't for my daughter, I'd probably be cursing at those 2 stitches. So, I've learned to have to watch my mouth. But, okay, so we're getting to back to the beginning here soon. And again, you're just taking and wrapping the peg next to it, and taking these bottom 2 up over the top 2. That's all you're doing as you're going around here, so that you can have, because again, these are 1 stitch a piece, but you're using 2 strands, so you can see that. 2 strands, 2 stitches, you're just wrapping and going around. Okay. And if you hear a slight humming sound in this video, I've got a fan going because it's a little warm in here. So I'm trying to talk a little louder so it doesn't bother you, so you can still hear me. Okay. Always feels like a project takes longer than it should. Here we go. I think next time I'll have to prep each stage on a separate loom. Then you guys don't have to wait for me to do what I'm doing here. Okay. But like I said, this is just a quick, 1 over 2 stitch. It'll create that tightness again, but because of what we're doing next, it won't showcase that very much. And so make sure you got your crochet hook ready, because you'll need it. Make sure you have your patience ready, because you'll need it. Make sure nobody's distracting you, because you'll need that too. You will notice that I count out loud, and that's what's you're gonna be counting in the next step. So that's why don't have anybody distracting you, and make sure you're relaxed and everything. Otherwise, you'll get very frustrated. And it's best to do this technique. I was doing it around my daughter. Not a good idea, because then she started counting, and then I would lose count. Even though I'm not counting that high, I still would lose count because she started counting with me, and then I would forget. Yeah. So find a quiet place to do this next step, because it will take you a while. At least it did for me. Okay, so we've gone around. We've got our 2 stitches on here. Now comes the part that's going to make the little nubby things. What you're going to do, you may need this hook still. It all depends on how tight your stitches are. You're going to need your crochet hook. You're going to need basic math of how to count to 5. So here we go. What you're going to do, let me get situated here, is you're going to do kind of like I said before when we casted off a flat peg. We took a stitch off and we looped it so many times, and then we grabbed up the next stitch and put on. But you're not picking up the next stitch this time. You're working basically 1 peg at a time. And the reason you need 2 is I'll show you in a second. What you're going to do is on your hook, grab this top stitch. Okay, leave the bottom one on there. Do not do anything to this bottom one. Pick up this one. Pick up the top. Make sure your yarn is ready to go, because you're going to need it. Now this first stitch is a little tight, so I'm just going to use my crochet hook to take it off. And I can kind of slip my hook through it. So it's on the hook, right? Can you see that? Okay, now what you're going to do is kind of like I said when we did the cast off thing. You're going to get your thing here, and you're going to create loops. I really wish there was a better way to show you this too. Okay, so what you're going to do, if I can do this right, is you're going to take your extra strand and wrap it around your hook, and you're going to pull it through the stitch to create a loop. Making sure you have both strands. So see, I went through and now I have a loop on there. Now you need to do 5 of those. We already did 1, so 1, 2, 3. Make sure you get all the strands. There's 3, 4, and then the last one is 5. But again, you may find that you want more or less. Make sure both strands, and then you take the hook off. Make sure your hook's still, your loop's there. You're going to take this loop and put it back. Well, you're going to take it to the left of the peg, which might be the right way I'm looking at. So you got here you got the 5 hooks. Let me turn it this way. You got the 5 hooks dangling down. You're going to go, it's on the left side of this first peg, and you're going to put it back on that first peg. So basically it's, okay, that didn't work right. Okay, hang on a minute. I went to the wrong peg. Okay. So, I know, I told you this step is a while. So, here's our first peg. We took off the bottom stitch. We did our 5 hooky loops. Now we're going to take this loop that we have, and we're going to put it back on top of that loop, on top of that stitch, so that this part is on the left of it. So when you're working around, everything's going to go to the left. You attach it back on. Now the reason that we keep the other stitch on there is so that after you do that, you're going to take this bottom stitch over top of this to lock this in place. Okay, so you're going to lock this in place. Taking the bottom stitch, oops, of course it's not going to cooperate with me now, bottom stitch over the top, okay, and that's going to lock this in. Now, as you go around, okay, you're going to need to like push this in a little bit so that it'll go down past the loom. And then once it comes down the other side, you can kind of reach in and push them back out. So don't be like, well, how's it going to go through the loom? All you're going to do is you're going to kind of push them in so that they'll go down, and then you're going to go on the inside of the hat. You're going to go on the inside of the hat and kind of give them a little push, or you can kind of give them a little tug and they'll come out. So again, let me show you one more time. Like I said, this process takes a while. Like I said, I did 5 loops, but you can do more or less. So practice again to find out what size you want on your project. I mean, different hat sizes might require a different amount of loops. So we're going to do it one more time to show you. Okay, you're going to take this bottom or the top stitch. This is the one we're going to work with. Let me turn this way so you can see. We're on the second peg. We're going to take this top stitch off and put it on our hook. Okay, so it's on our hook. Then we're going to take, excuse me, the string, make sure it's behind the first peg so you can work with it, and you're going to do the loops. You're going to put the string on there, you're going to bring it through to create your 5 loops. 1, 2, oops. And make sure you get both strands because I just lost a strand. So you got 2. Okay, so we got our 2 hooks on there, and then we're going to do 3. Okay, make sure there's both because I only had 1. 4, and now our last one. And sometimes you can do, if it starts getting tight, just hook this up because this is the yarn that's getting thread through, so you can kind of give yourself more slack if you need to, if it's coming tight. Okay. Now these all won't be consistent because I did notice that sometimes I did tighter loops than others, but really the thing about a cupcake, when you're frosting a cupcake, it doesn't get even, so I didn't really worry about it. So now we got to do the last stitch. So we come around, oops, as you can tell, and then we pull it through. So now we've got that 5th loop on there. Okay, so you can remove this for now. And again, what you're going to do is take this loop, keep it to the left of the peg, instead of this side, and then put it on it. Now I would advise letting them stay on the outside. Don't push them in to go through the loom until you get them all done and you do another knit row. So don't push them to go to the bottom, to be able to come out the bottom until you get them all done. That's just kind of what I like to do. Okay, so you got it on there, and again, now you have the 2 stitches. So you're going to take the bottom one, see if I can do this backwards. Okay, you're going to take the bottom stitch and you're going to bring it up. It's a little hard to do them backwards here. So let me try it sideways. So you got the bottom stitch on here and you're going to bring it up over top of that to lock this in place again. Okay? And the other one's kind of moved, but you can kind of bring it back around. So see? There's 2 of our little nubbies. So you're going to do that same pattern around, picking up the top stitch. Okay? Pick up the top stitch. Do your 5 loops, take that loop and put it back on, making sure the nub is in between the peg, before the peg, basically. Knit it over, go to the next one, go to the next one, go to the next one. Time consuming, like I said, because you're doing all these pegs. I was like, okay, but I'm glad it worked. So, go around, and I will stop this, I'll come back in a minute and show you it all done. So again, go around and do that same technique until you get back to the beginning. Okay, we are at the part where I've only got a couple more to do, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like, or what it should kind of look like as you do it. So I'm going to do the last couple ones again just to re-show you how to do it. Again, you're taking that top stitch right there off, putting it on your hook, so it's on your hook, and then you're doing as many loops as you decided, but we're doing 5 at this time. You can do more or less, that's up to you. So you can do 1, wrap it around, 2, 3, hang on, let me redo that one. This is 3, okay, 4, and 5. So there's your 5 loops. Take away the hook, lay it in between those 2 pegs, and put it back on the peg that you're taking the stitch off. So it looks like that. And then just knit it over, because as you know, you're going to have a stitch still on there from before. So knit that over, and that locks this in place. So I got one last one here to do. So I'm doing the 5 loops. And 5. Like I said, I did my 5 loops. I took that top stitch off, did 5 loops, and now I'm going to put it back on there so that it's beside it, and then put it back on the loop, or back on the peg, sorry. Sometimes it likes to fight me. Okay. And you see, so we've got, this is our last peg. We're just going to knit that over so it locks that little bump in place. Now I mentioned earlier about pushing all these in so they would fall underneath. Don't worry about right now. It's not like a big thing that has to be done right then. What I do now, and what I did in this hat, excuse me, I'll bring it closer. So we have the little nubbins, and if you look close enough, you can see that I did a knit row. So I would do 1 to 2 knit rows before we start doing this technique that I did up here. So we're gonna quickly go around and get this row knitted off. And what's good too is if you're doing this as you go around, you kind of can tug these a little bit forward so that it maybe will lock them even more into place when they drop down through. So that's kind of what I'm doing, is I'm pulling them forward a little bit for right now, and I'm wrapping the pegs to knit around again. But if you pull them out, what it might do is it might help set it out a little more, so that when it does fall through, it might actually be more of a bump than it was before. I didn't quite do that the last time, so maybe that's why they actually are kind of, they're kind of not staying perfectly out there. So just kind of pull them forward a little bit because you're just going to knit a row around. Like I said, it's your choice. You can do 1 knit around, or you can do 2 knit arounds. I think I did 2 on that one, so that's what I'm going to do here. I'll try to be consistent with how I did it. Like I said, because they're just, just kind of tug them forward a little bit. You can see what I'm doing, just tugging them forward a little bit just to kind of get them out there a little bit so that when you go around, then you'll see what I'll do after this. Okay, so I got them. Alright, so then it should look like this. Okay, you got your 2 stitches, you're just going to knit over. Another trick you can do, this is the starter peg. I knitted this one over, but what you can do, because you still got your string here so you don't lose all this, you can actually knit the last row over, and they'll kind of lock it in place so it doesn't actually come off the loop while you're knitting off the other ones. So that's the trick I kind of do. See, if you do that, then it won't fall, the string won't fall off the loom. And then go around and knit over. And I'm trying to do like I just did, which I just... over. Now, like I said, it's up to you whether you want to... I would probably go around 1 more time knitting. I believe that's what I did on the hat. So get yourself to the end. And this is kind of where you probably can start tucking them back through a little bit so that they will fall through the other side. Yeah, I gotta watch for losing pegs. I have this happen to me quite a bit, where the peg falls out. It drives me nuts when you're going right along and it does that. So be wary of any loose pegs that might pop out when you're working. So don't go like too fast where if it happens you're gonna lose your total stitch. Just go at whatever pace works for you that will still allow you to have control over the project. Okay, so we did 1 knit over. Now we're gonna do 1 more time around. And this time, if you want, you can kind of just start like pushing them in, so that way they will start falling through. So just kind of push them in. You can do it as you're going around knitting, but I'm just going to do it right now for the fun of it. So I'm pushing those all in, and then that way when you're pushing these down to get ready to do your next knit, you kind of go like this. I just do this technique a lot of times. And of course if they're stuck, then you can kind of push them through, push them down, push it through, kind of thing. And that starts getting them ready to go through the other side. So I'm getting ready to do another knit row, so I'm just getting this ready by pushing little knobby things, whatever I want to call them, and so that all I can go around, oops, those didn't go down, go around, do 1 more knit row, and then we'll do the other part of the cupcake. Okay. Excuse me. Yeah, it was funny. I realized I was hungry during the first part of taping, and then I realized I hadn't eaten dinner. So I quickly ran and made something really quick so that my stomach wouldn't growl again while I was doing the video. Okay, so we're all prepped to do another knit row over, so go ahead and do that. And then we will start the other, pretty much the final technique. Now you notice that I had a pom-pom on the cupcake. I have a little tool from Clover, I believe it is, that makes pom-poms. So if you've never seen a pom-pom maker and you want to know how I use that, just comment below, or I probably will do a video of it anyway, just to show how to do that little pom-pom on the top. It's pretty simple, but I've learned that never assume people know stuff, because sometimes they don't. Like, I didn't know how to make a pom-pom, and I kept seeing it on projects. I'm like, well, I don't know how to do that. And there's all these different ways you can do it, but when I found this tool that would do it, like in just a couple easy steps, I'm like, that's for me. So I picked that up. So I'll probably do a video for that, just to show you how to use it, if you don't already know how to use one. And the one thing is, if you have a question or something, go ahead and ask it in the comments below, or go to my website and do a message to me, because I grew up always with the philosophy there's no such thing as a stupid question, and chances are if you have a question, somebody else does too, so just go ahead and ask it. Believe me, I've asked some dozens of questions through my life here. Okay, so we're almost getting to the end of this row, and then we'll start the other technique, which is a garter stitch. I've looked up what the actual term is, but I call it the knit purl stitch, basically. Well, you're going to do a row of purling, and then you're going to do a row of knitting, then you go back to a row of purling, and then a row of knitting. And you pretty much do that until you get to where you want to end the project. And then you will cast off the hat, which I'm hoping people know, but I might just quickly show you, even though this will not make a hat, obviously, that size. Okay, so we've already knitted over, so now what we're going to do, excuse me, in order to create this kind of ridge effect, is we're going to purl, then knit, purl, then knit, purl, then knit, pretty much until you get to the point where you want to bind this off. And I'm assuming, like I said, you know, but I'll show you really quick. Like I said, when I take this off, it won't be big enough for a hat. Probably look really tiny. Probably like a beanie for a baby, probably. Could be cute. But anyhow, I'll just do that. You're just gonna purl a row, then knit a row, purl a row, then knit a row. Do that for, like, let me see, probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think I did about 11 rows, alternating that style. I ended, I believe, with a purl row before I cast off. So I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna do a row of purling, and then a row of knitting, a row of purling, and a row of knitting. I'll do a couple rows of that, because I've already shown you how to purl, and at this point you know how to knit. So go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you how I take this off.